Amazing Adventures of Ulysses. Chapter 1. A Wooden Horse. Long ago, a Trojan prince stole Helen, a Greek princess. He took her to his city, Troy. At once, a Greek king named Ulysses set sail with many other Greek kings and their armies to rescue her. Help! Ulysses and the soldiers came face to face with the Trojans outside the city. The Greek men fought bravely, but the Trojan army wasn't their only problem. The city of Troy was protected by huge walls. The Greek armies fought the Trojans for 10 years, but they couldn't get into Troy. After hundreds of battles and thousands of injuries, they still hadn't rescued Helen. "I give up. Can we go home now?" But Ulysses was not going to give up. He thought of a cunning trick. The next day, the Trojans awoke to a surprise. Outside the city walls, the Greek camp had disappeared. In its place stood a giant wooden horse. Every single one of the Greek ships had vanished too. "We've won! We've won!" shouted the people of Troy. They wheeled the wooden horse through the gates into the city and partied until midnight. Unknown to the Trojans, Ulysses and his men were hiding inside the horse. "It's okay. The coast is clear." While everyone was sleeping, they climbed down a rope ladder. Then they crept to the city gates and opened them. Outside, the rest of the Greek army was waiting. The soldiers had sailed back to Troy in the dark of night. When morning came, the city of Troy woke up to a nightmare. The Trojan men tried to fight, but the Greek soldiers killed them all. Then the Greeks stole all of their treasure, set fire to the buildings, and rescued Helen. The war with Troy, the Trojan War, was over. But for Ulysses and his men, the adventures had just begun. Chapter 2. The Cyclops. The Greek kings shared out the treasure between them. Then all the ships set sail for home, but Ulysses and his men got lost. After 2 weeks at sea, they landed on an island to look for more food and water. All they had left to drink was some wine, which they took with them. "Look, there's a cave!" At the top of a cliff, they found a cave. It was full of huge cheeses and vast buckets of milk. The men called out, but there was no answer. "Let's go in and eat now," suggested Ulysses. "Then we can wait for the owner." As they ate, a shadow fell on the men. They looked up and saw a one-eyed giant, a Cyclops. He drove his ship into the cave and rolled a rock across the entrance, blocking them in. His one enormous eye glared at the Greeks. "Who are you?" he roared. As Ulysses tried to explain, the Cyclops snatched up 2 men. "His breath smells horrible. He's hurting me." He crushed them in his fist and ate them both. Then the Cyclops gave a loud burp, lay down, and went to sleep. The men begged Ulysses to kill him before he ate them too. "You could stab him now." "No," said their wise king. "If I kill him, who's going to move that heavy rock and set us free?" The next morning, the Cyclops went out of the cave. He moved the heavy rock back into place, trapping the men inside. Ulysses and his men had to think fast. When the Cyclops returned, Ulysses offered him some wine.
"What is your name?"
asked the Cyclops. Nobody, replied Ulysses, pouring out more wine.
"What a funny name,"
laughed the Cyclops and fell asleep. Ulysses picked up a pole that he had sharpened and hidden. He heated the end in the fire.
"Please don't wake up."
The men tiptoed toward the giant. They plunged the red-hot pole into his eye. The Cyclops roared out in pain. Everyone on the island rushed to see what was wrong.
"Nobody has hurt me,"
cried the Cyclops.
"Nobody poked my eye out and I can't see." "If nobody has hurt you, then stop crying like a baby,"
said the other giants, walking away. The blind and furious Cyclops rolled away the rock. He waited for the Greeks to come out, but Ulysses had already planned their escape.
"I'm going to get you, Mr. Nobody."
Each man was tied onto the belly of a sheep. All the Cyclops could feel was wool and horns. Too late, the giant realized he'd been tricked. Ulysses and his men had already escaped. Chapter 3: Circe and Her Spells. The Greeks sailed away laughing, but they had made a new enemy, the Cyclops' father, Poseidon. Poseidon was god of the sea. He hated Ulysses and his crew for hurting one of his sons.
"I will have my revenge. They won't be laughing for very long,"
he snarled. Soon, Ulysses' ship had landed on another island. Ulysses divided his men into two groups.
"Who wants to go off and explore?"
One man, Eurylochus, would lead half of the crew in search of food and water. Ulysses would stay with the rest of the men to guard his ship. Eurylochus and his men walked for hours. They couldn't find anything to eat or drink, and they didn't meet a soul. Finally, one of the men saw a wisp of smoke rising above the trees. The smoke led them to a palace and a beautiful woman. The woman led them into a grand hall. A feast was laid out on the table. "You are my guest," said the woman. "Please eat."
"Cheers!"
Between mouthfuls, one man asked her name. "I am Circe," she said, and filled the men's cups with wine. The Greeks ate, drank, and sang a lot. They didn't notice that Eurylochus wasn't there. He didn't trust Circe, so he was spying from outside. What happened next made him gasp in horror. One wave of Circe's magic wand turned the men into pigs. Eurylochus raced back to the ship. He told the others what he had seen.
"What did you say?" "Our men are now pigs."
Without delay, Ulysses set off to rescue his friends. On the way, Hermes, who was the messenger for the gods, flew up to him.
"The goddess Athene sends you this magic flower,"
he told Ulysses.
"Eat it, and you will be safe from Circe's tricks."
At the palace, Circe invited Ulysses inside for some wine. Behind his back, she poured some poison into his cup. "This will fix him." Ulysses drank the wine. He wasn't afraid of Circe's magic. Then she tapped him with her wand. He jumped up.
"Your evil magic can't harm me," he cried. "Now take me to my crew."
"Help! My magic hasn't worked. Circe was scared. She led him to the pigsty right away. Circe smeared a potion onto the pigs' snouts. Magically, they changed back into men.
Boo! I'm me again!
The men were frightened of Circe, but she promised not to work any more magic on them. If she did, she knew Ulysses would kill her. She prepared a great feast that lasted a year. The men from the ship came to join in too. I wish she could stay forever. When the men decided to go, Circe was very sad. She had fallen in love with Ulysses, but she gave them food and warned them of dangers that lay ahead.